Can you introduce yourself? Tell us what you do and what your first experience with marijuana was, or how it entered your life, if either doing it or being around it.
Of course, it's George Noory, host of Coast to Coast AM, and unlike Bill Clinton, I can't say I never inhaled. When I was in college, I had a friend of mine who said, hey, why don't you try this? And I did a couple times. It didn't do too much for me. If anything, it made my heart race, and so I stopped. But years later, as I began to broadcast programs, I realized that the medicinal use of marijuana was critical for people who could not take pharmaceutical prescription painkillers, and it helped them dramatically. And I have been a staunch supporter of the use of medicinal marijuana to help people like that.
Why, in your opinion, is it still illegal today? Why do you think the government just doesn't do full-scale legalization, or at least put up for a vote? What's your reason for their motive? What do you think is their motivation?
Probably stupidity, greed, and a lot of other things. I think companies like big tobacco companies would much rather have you hooked on cigarettes instead of taking marijuana to help cure yourself. You know, marijuana has been shown to fight tumors, reduce pain in people, help with glaucoma, marijuana drops, for example. I think there's an incredible lobby out there to fight that. It's changing. As we see now, states are beginning to pass laws allowing for the use of medicinal marijuana. I think one day the federal government will do the same thing.
Do you know anybody personally that takes marijuana for medicine, or any friends?
I have done some shows with people, but I do not know them personally. But they have said, all of them, that it has helped them dramatically.
It's just a funny question. I'll give it just to make you laugh.
Okay.
So let's say you're not much of a smoker nowadays. I don't think. Okay.
Not at all.
If aliens came down with some special marijuana, would you give it a try?
Oh boy, I don't know if I could trust them or not.
Megan came with that question. I had to ask it. All right. Do you feel that, the way that it's just became legalized in Colorado, Washington? Have you had any callers from there yet?
Oh yeah,
talking and discussing it?
Yeah, we've had guests on that talk about it as well. It's growing. It's a growing trend in this country, where states are beginning to legalize this with some restrictions, of course. You restrict alcohol, you might as well restrict marijuana too. They're all concerned about the federal government and what they may or may not do. I think eventually the federal government will back down on enforcing its federal laws.
How about hemp and what it does for the environment, the soil, T-shirts, everything like that, even building parachutes in World War II?
And fuel.
And fuel, yeah. What do you think is the possibilities there with hemp and everything it does?
Eventually, hemp may be categorized like marijuana and will be allowed to be used. As you know, years ago, hemp was used regularly in this country, but it was the Hearst Empire that controlled forests that wanted that to be used for paper instead of hemp, and that whole thing started to change.
Can you tell us one thing about historical American documents that were written on hemp? Can you go on maybe the Constitution? Can you just discuss that and what other maybe has been printed on hemp? Are you familiar with that?
Oh, I'm not familiar at all with many documents about the use of hemp or the restricting of hemp or what it was used for. But in the old days, it was a paper source, and they used it a lot. My most prevalent experience with hemp has been in the Hempmobile back in St. Louis. There's a guy who owns one and uses hemp for fuel.
Now, the other day when I called you up, I told you the government had just patented CBDs, and why they're doing that is a mystery. Not really much of a mystery, but why they're doing it is a mystery. I think
it's smart business on their part.
Yeah, they're cornering the $1 trillion market, the cure for cancer, the cure for all these things. Why is the government doing it that way? Why do you think they want to make a business out of it or a patent? Why don't they just want to give it to the people, release information, and let them do it at home, rather than having it be a business-controlled industry by the government?
One word: greed. Pure and simple. He who controls makes the money. and that's what they want.
Is there any questions about marijuana that I should ask you, or something that you would like to talk about?
Well, I think if we're specifically talking about the medicinal use of marijuana, it is critical that people have an opportunity to use it. I have seen people break down and cry when they could not use it because it eliminated pain for them and everything else. And then when they were forced not to use it, they had to go back to pharmaceutical drugs, and it almost ruined their lives. And I said, we have an opportunity to make it right and to get people to use this.
Do you believe there should be full-scale legalization?
No, not full scale, but legalization does not need to be abused. I mean, we got to make sure it's controlled. I have no problems with that, but it should be made available
To everybody, or just
to
a
anybody
patient?
who really needs it.
Okay. Can you tell us about the hemp mobile, just out of curiosity? What was it like being
in
in
St.
it?
Louis? He's got a little hemp mobile. It's a little car, and he processes hemp and turns it into a liquid fuel, and he pours it into his engine, and off he goes.
And have you ever had a weird call relating to marijuana on the radio? A weird call, like something you remember?
I might have had calls from people who were stoned.
Oh, yes.
But that's about it.
Do you know any hidden knowledge or historical knowledge about marijuana? You've been exposed to so much information.
It's been around a long, long time. Some people would call it hashish. There's different forms of the substance. But, since human beings have smoked or enjoyed plants made by nature. And that's what this is. It's a plant made by nature. I support it because it helps eliminate pain in people, and that it could very well be a cancer-causing fighting agent. And if that's the case, we should be doing all we can to get it out into the public's hands.
Thank you very much for the interview.
Thank you.